What's up? I'm going to walk you through a quick view at how we break mobility assessments down into a global, regional, and local view. We've got Brittany here as our client today, and I will be your trainer. So the way this is going to work, from a global perspective, I want to see how Brittany's moving through different movement patterns that are considered like functional patterns. So something like a squat, a hinge, a push, a pull, a lunge, something that gives me a higher level view or a bigger view of how her body's moving as a whole. From there, we'll look at different regions. So for example, if we see something going on at her hips and knees and ankles, or if it's a lower body specific issue, we'll go and address all the different joints associated with that at a regional view, and then maybe even down to local. So maybe we look at her lower body and we start to recognize more of it comes from the hip. So then we'll actually look at how that hip should be functioning, and then we'll work our way back up the chain as we start to address each issue. So to help you understand a little bit better, we're going to take you through two different examples today. First one is going to be a squat and a lunge to look at a lower body deficiency, and then we'll look at a push-up pattern to see what could happen in a common upper body deficiency. So what Brittany set up for a bodyweight squat here, and when I'm assessing this, if you guys are trainers out there, or if you're just watching yourself do this, I'm going to look from a side view what's going on, but I'm also going to look from a front or back view. So if you want to go ahead and do your squats, I'll stand from the front. And as you guys notice, the first thing that I coached Brittany to do here, her squats do look better than this, but the first thing we coached her to do was to have her knees fall in. This is super common. Her knees were forward and they're falling in. So that tells me, as the fitness professional, that there's something going on in the lower half of her body here. It's likely something to do with her hips or her ankles. Generally, it's above and below the chain of where you see things. Not always, but that's a good rule of thumb. So with that in mind, I'm going to move on to something a little bit different. Maybe we try a lunge. So I'll have you step back and do a forward lunge for me. And this gives me another view of what's going on here. Normally, if her knees are falling in on a squat, they're probably going to fall in on the lunge here too. So that tells me, once again, there's something going on with the lower body. So now that I've confirmed that, we'll say, okay, cool. Let's stop this lunge. Let's pop down into a quadruped position or all fours. And we'll start to see what exactly is going on here. So for me, I like to look at a couple more local exercises to get a better regional view, if you will. So for example, globally, we saw lower body. Regionally, we know it's probably hips or ankles or knees. Instead of just trying to do something that incorporates the lower end of it, we'll start to look at each joint individually. That's kind of the local view, like I mentioned. So we'll have Brittany keep her hips square here, but lift her left knee off the ground and just raise it in abduction or raise it to the side. And one of the things that I would notice is she's likely going to be pretty weak here, because usually when knees are falling in, that means that there's something going on with the hips, so you can come back down. But I'm going to see, maybe you do the other side now, if there's any imbalances from side to side. And she's leaning a little bit more here on this side, so I'll tell her to drop this. And is that tougher on one side versus the other? Or? Yeah. So there's a cue. Asking the right questions, starting to assess what those issues are. Then we can actually focus on, okay, Brittany needs to work on her hip abduction and then maybe her extension. So I'll have you lay on your stomach and we can test your extension as well. So lay down on your belly. You're going to bend this knee here. And all I want you to do is focus on getting this hip and knee up off the ground. So lift this heel to the ceiling. And we would test that on each side. And that's me taking that global view. Come back down. Let's try the other side. Kind of hard to tell if there's a difference from this angle, but it'd be a good view if I came out from the side where you guys couldn't see me and look at whether or not she's higher on one side versus the other. I could also ask questions. So, hey, how did that feel? Was one side tougher than the other?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Maybe I coached her, maybe I didn't. But you kind of get the point of where we're going here. Same thing could happen if maybe her hips were feeling fine and she said no, and it looked fine. We can go look at her ankles and start to address that side of it. So that's me going from global to regional. Okay, maybe I went regional to local where the hip's not the issue, or the hips aren't the issue. Let's go look at her ankles. So ultimately, we just keep looking at different layers of this, and that's kind of the final key to the story with this system that we put together, is you're going to have to peel back layers, because there may be things on the surface level that are a little bit harder to see off the bat, whereas if I can start to get one area to loosen up, maybe all of a sudden now another area is actually tighter, and we weren't able to see that before because of the issues that were compounded on top of it. So another example is having Brittany do a push-up assessment. So let's see if there's anything going on with her push-up here. As she goes down, her head looks like it's tilting forward here a little bit. So go ahead and do one more rep for us. There's obviously something going on up here, so go ahead and stop. Up next, since she's got that forward neck posture, we're going to see what's going on in the shoulder, T-spine, thoracic area. That's a really good way to look at it from a regional perspective. For us personally, the first step we would look at is what's going on with your scaps, because if they're stiff, likely everything else is going to be stiff. So she beat me to the punch already, and she's already started doing scapular protraction and retraction here to see if her scaps function. And so she's going to keep working through this. Honestly, pretty solid. Notice her head stays back, not anything too crazy here. So maybe it is more of her neck, maybe it's more of her thoracic spine. We know where the opportunity is going to be because I've cheated and I've seen her move a lot. But now we'll look at thoracic spine. So for example, let's take this left arm, reach it through here and thread the needle. And when you come back around, I want you to turn and open up and reach to the ceiling. And you can see where she's a little stiff right here. And this isn't play. We have opportunities with our mobility as well, things that we have to work on. But now I know she's really good at reaching this direction, but as soon as she opens up, there's a little bit of tension across here. So that's something we want to work on. We went from global to regional to local. What could be interesting, like I said, when you talk about looking at layers, is that maybe we get that, we do some foam rolling and some soft tissue work in her upper back, and we get down to the depth of it. Maybe it's something beyond her thoracic spine, and that's just limited because it's the way she's breathing, or maybe the way her ribs are set. Maybe we need to refer out to someone else to do some type of manipulation. Long story short, hopefully you get a better understanding of that global, regional, and local view on things, peeling back different layers and finding ways to assess your movement or your client's movement. Cool? Thanks.